This meeting of the Margate Planning Board is called to order. Please stand for the flag salute. Attention salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Tom Collins. Here. Clem Wesleski. Here. Rich Patterson.
Here.
Michael Cristaldi. Here. Jim Galantino.
Present.
Margaret Gubernalti. Craig Palmisano. Here. Despina Hess. Here. Remy Pelosi. Here. Joe DiGirolamo. Ron Gruppo.
Here.
Mike Richmond.
Here.
This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion for the approval of the minutes of the December 14th, 2017 meeting.
I'll second.
Tom, Jim, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Do we need a motion for that?
Wait a second. Election of chairman and vice chairman. Do I hear a nomination for chairman?
I'll make a nomination.
Who?
You. Mr. Parris.
Any other nominations? All right. Do we just vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. I'd like to hear a nomination for board secretary administrator. Oh, I'm sorry, vice chairman.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes. Selection of solicitor.
I'll make a nomination for Leah Manis.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Selection of board secretary administrator.
No. I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? None. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Who needs to be sworn in?
I do.
Jimmy
Were you reappointed?
here,
Oh, okay.
and our new member, Ron Gruppo. Yeah, you guys can follow along with that one. Joe's not here. And we're going to do you all at once. Well, I need one to read myself. So why don't you give me Joe's? And then there's yours. Yeah, that's all. Okay. All right. Joanne scolded me before because we're not speaking up enough, so try and speak up as best you can. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your names.
I, Remy Pelosi,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States,
and in this state under the authority of the people, so help me God.
and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I do further solemnly swear or affirm that I will impartially and justly
I do further solemnly swear or affirm that I will impartially and justly
perform all the duties of the office of planning board member according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
perform all the duties of the office of planning board member according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Thank you. I think.
Congratulations.
I don't
Yes,
think
they
s-
need to sign.
Oh, they do? Oh, yeah, right where I signed it, they need to sign it. And I need to notarize it on the notary block. I just signed right under it, right there. I'll fix it later. Thanks.
Congratulations.
What's up?
I'd like to hear a motion for approval of decisions and resolutions.
Now we gotta read.
Number 1, 2018 meeting dates. Number 2, 2018 Jeffrey Marshall, Moschel. Number 3, 2018 Adventure Golf LLP.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike,
I'll second.
all in favor? Opposed? None. Why are they 18? Wasn't that a 17 meeting?
Resolution was done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 17 meetings.
The adoption, the meetings, do you have the meeting schedule?
That was on the last,
Oh, okay. So we already adopted it?
yes, resolution number 1.
Okay.
The modification, right?
Okay, the first case is Margate Burger LLC, 70.
Mike, or Rich, I need the board to discuss whether we choose to move March's meeting from the 29th, which is the Thursday before Easter, to the 22nd.
I would be in favor of that. Is everybody in favor of the 22nd? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Margate Burger LLC, 7903 Ventnor Avenue, Block 207.03, Lot 4, in the C1 District, to grant an amended site plan and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Please be sworn in, Mr.
Ruben.
And I think just to bring everyone aboard, this is a continuation from the November hearing, and then on December 14th, we made an announcement that it was going to be carried to this hearing. So if you were not here in November, the only way you can participate is if you sign a certification that you've listened to the tape. Joanna has those certifications. I'm not sure if she has them here tonight, but as long as you're willing to say that you listened to the tape and you will sign that certification, you can participate. So if anyone is not in that group, Mr. Grouper, I'm assuming you haven't listened to the tape?
No, I listened to it.
Oh, you did? Okay. So everyone here was either here in November or listened to the tape? Okay. Then everyone's okay. Mr. McLaren? You-
Yes. I need to know if I have to listen to the tape in order to make comment.
I don't know.
No.
Okay.
Mr. McLaren, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. Since this is a continuation, I would suggest that the applicant come forth and do the presentation now, and I can comment as we proceed along.
I usually get prepared during your report, so I'm not ready.
Oh.
Thank you, I'm good. Thank you, Mr.
Briefly,
Go ahead.
I'll just brief you in. The changes and modifications that they've made, and with the comments and non-comments from the engineer, and they've actually provided additional landscape buffering between the residential uses in the back. They're not seeking any variances, so this is just an amended site plan application now. And I think we ought to have an open discussion during your presentation, but the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Chris Balanton on behalf of the applicant, Margate Burger LLC. On a continuation from the hearing in November, when we actually presented the whole case, during the course of the hearing, with some input from the neighbors and the board, the plan was amended to essentially...
Jim, you know where the other microphone is? Oh,
Get new batteries.
Speak loud enough or
no, wait.
And I'll present it to you guys as well. What finally came to fruition toward the end of the hearing was a change to the traffic circulation pattern, which resulted in the elimination of the ability to drive entirely through the site from Frontenac to Franklin. Some of the neighbors had requested that if we maintained the cross-access that it be brought in an easterly direction, but then divert the traffic to the access, the curb cut closest to the corner, because if it stayed where it is now, where the bank used to have it, pulling up to the curb cut on Franklin, there was an inability to see traffic coming up Franklin Avenue, which is one way. So there was a conflict because of the fence which runs along the property line. So the request was to redirect traffic to the southerlymost curb cut. What the applicant said was, "Oh, we'll do you one better. I'll close that curb cut and that curb cut, maintain one existing curb cut on Franklin Avenue closest to the corner where it is now, and just have a traditional parking lot in and out from Franklin Avenue with parking spaces on each side in a more traditional parking lot sense, without the cross access, which didn't serve any purpose other than to take traffic off Front Neck and get it onto the site rather than go around the block." But with that having been said, some of us will recall that the cross access to the rear of the site was previously a bank drive-through. Now that bank drive-through, the entrance was on Franklin. So this pattern, although not recent, of going around Franklin to access this site was something that originated with the bank drive-through. Not only did traffic have to go around the block to get into the site, traffic had to go back around the block to get out of the site, because it's only a one-way out to the right when the bank patrons left. So they had to go back around the block again. So what is proposed with this application, background, is to close all the curb cuts, except the one that exists closest to the corner of Franklin Avenue, and have that be the primary access, the only access to the parking lot. That enables us to create one more parking space, so the parking now conforms, eliminating the parking variance. What that results in is a site plan. Is a site plan that conforms with the ordinance and doesn't require any variances. The genesis of the application, again, was the 829 square foot building addition, which allows about 45 seats spread from the inside and the outside to accommodate patrons, which has been a request over the years to address a mistake or an oversight that the applicant had made when he originally had the site approved, which was we don't want any seating, we want to keep it clean and neat and have takeout only. That apparently was not the right business plan. Deferring to that and owning up to it, I would now seek indoor and outdoor seating as approved by this board, hopefully, with restrooms as required inside the space. And that allows a couple things to occur. That allows, as Roger pointed out, buffering along the rear lot line. It's been requested to extend that to the corner, which is acceptable to the applicant. It allows additional landscaping on site up against the building and some enhancement of the landscaping within the existing planters, because now there's access from Ventnor Avenue, pedestrian access from Ventnor Avenue sidewalk onto the site right to the doors. The outside window is being eliminated. That window will now function from the inside, so it'll be a more traditional restaurant layout with on-site parking, which is not obviously the norm in Margate. A thought, Mr. McLaren, with respect to the street trees. I don't know if there's a bus stop anymore at this location on Ventnor Avenue. I don't think that there is, but there's parking all along Ventnor Avenue and on both side streets, and increased parking as a result of closing these curb cuts. What we would like to do, as opposed to putting perimeter street trees, we have planting beds, 2 of them on Franklin and a planting bed along Ventnor Avenue. If we could locate the requested street trees within those existing planting beds, that way the maintenance obligation will be enhanced by them being on-site rather than off-site, and there won't really be an interference with the on-site, with the new on-street parking that is around the perimeter of the site. It's just a request I'd ask the board to consider. Rather than street trees along Ventnor Avenue, I don't know that they would fare that well in light of the parking that's available there. This is a variance-free application at this point. We've addressed the site plan requirements as set forth in the ordinance, and for those reasons and with those amendments, we would ask that the board act on the application in that manner. I will point out, and I don't like to hold a heavy hand, I try not to, but with respect to a site plan that conforms and a use that is permitted, and I have provided Joanna with a brief, I don't know if she's disseminated that to you guys. The law looks at a use that is permitted with respect to traffic. A permitted site plan, a by right site plan. The law actually says you can't consider in your deliberation off-site traffic impacts, which flow from the development. The reason for that is a very simple reason. The reason is because the governing body at some point in time determined that a permitted use is going to be located in a location where the existing infrastructure can support it. So there's been a determination at some point in time by the founding fathers that the CBD zoning district and the uses that are permitted there, that the street system, the side street system, the infrastructure is sufficient to allow those types of uses. So you can't look at the fact that traffic is being added to the street system because of this use is allowed to be there. The fact that it generates traffic is anticipated and expected and can't be considered in your deliberations as to whether to approve a site plan or not to approve a site plan. So the fact that, the fact that there will be additional off-site traffic going around Franklin Avenue to enter the parking lot is really not something that you can deny this application because of. So says the law. So you can say, I'm blaming this on the law. I'm blaming this on the case law that's been provided, and Leo can either confirm or not confirm what I have submitted. I just offer that as part of your deliberations when you get to that point.
Chris, at one point, your client had illegally blocked off the Frontenac Avenue entrance, and we had a neighbor testify that created a dangerous condition on the other side, going through his gas station and coming down the street the wrong way.
Okay? That hearsay statement about who closed...
Hearsay?
Wait a second. About who closed off that curb cut is for another day, but it's assuming that it happened...
Are you saying it didn't happen?
That curb cut has been closed with or without
Exactly.
the permission of the police department. So whether...
It was closed, and by being closed, it created a dangerous situation on the other side, which went away after it was opened.
Well, I was here when Bud spoke, and I'm not sure that's exactly what he said. What Bud said in general is that people tend to shoot across his property
And go the wrong way down the one-way
to
street.
use that access. Well, that's...
He said it went away after they opened up the
And
Franklin Avenue.
that's fair enough. But if Bud's site didn't have depressed curb on every frontage, that wouldn't happen either, because you couldn't cut through his site the way you can now.
So the neighbor should get rid of his curb cuts?
No, I'm just saying there are other causes of that happening that time. Okay. But it's no different if it's no different if this was Margate Burger or anything else with the configuration of the site and the fact that the gas station is across the street and allows you to cut across. That can happen, Rich.
But you're changing the configuration of the site, and you're cutting off an entrance that doesn't cause a problem and opening up an entrance that does cause a problem.
And that's fine, and I'm allowed to do that. And I'm allowed to do that as part of a site plan application that is permitted by the ordinance and doesn't have any variances. There's nothing in the ordinance that requires those curb cuts to be maintained. In fact, I would argue that those curb cuts on that property are contrary to good planning with respect to the CBD zone. They preclude that lot from being developed at some point in time the way it should be, consistent with the Saganos block and other inline retail streets. By those curb cuts and maintaining a 24-foot wide cartway across that site precludes the proper development of that site in the future should Margate Burger ever not be there. The fact that there was a bank there one day is of no moment. Those curb cuts do not have to stay there forever. And why it was insisted that they stay there when the takeout window was at the front of the building and the cross-access was at the front of the building, I'm surprised this board didn't say that those two don't go along. That shouldn't happen. But this board wanted it to be that way, and I disagreed with it. That's my thought. But Rich,
Chris,
with
just
anything
real
else,
quick.
this traffic pattern will become common. Everybody will be used to it at some point in time, probably sooner rather than later. Fortunately, that this is not yet a heavily trafficked site. Hopefully, it will become that. But right now, we have the fortunate circumstance that maybe everybody get used to it in a slow way that'll help the city.
Just point of interest, you're trying to tell me not to take into account existing traffic flow, what's gonna happen. Somebody comes in here and says, oh, we bought part of Atlantic Avenue, we're gonna put a brick wall across it. I'm not gonna vote for that. I can't
I'm
vote
not-
for,
I'm fine.
but I'm saying that we know, and the gas station's been there 50, 100 years.
Mhm.
So you're saying, well, ignore what's there, and we'll worry about somebody getting killed later.
I'm not,
That's
I-
why
that's
I'm
absolutely,
hearing you, and
that's absolutely not what I'm saying, and I represent, I disagree with you, Tom, I don't agree with that. What I'm saying is, the change to the traffic pattern is not something you can look at to deny a permitted site plan. It has nothing to do with whether or not what's happening has any relationship with Bud Taylor's site next door. I mean, people shoot across Bud Taylor's site simply as a function of the fact that they can. And that's an illegal, that's an illegal movement as it is.
But we're
what
looking
you're
at
doing-
whether a site plan fits the master plan, whether it fits the
whether it fits
intent of the
whether it
city,
fits the ordinance.
fits the ordinance, and whether it's a detriment or a value to the city of Margate.
You don't weigh the pros and cons of the site plan. If a site plan meets the ordinance requirements, it is a vote that doesn't include your weighing the positives and the negatives. That's for a variance, Tom. It's not for a site plan. You're here to determine whether or not it meets the site plan ordinance. Fortunately or unfortunately, but what you're saying is, you know what? We're gonna be a proponent of what happens at Bud Taylor. We're gonna say, hey, you know what? People have been doing that 50 years. We're gonna let that keep happening. Is that what you're saying?
What keep happening? Bud Taylor's customers come out that ramp and from his gas station? He's not causing any detriment to the city or to Margate.
But the shooting.
So because you're gonna open something up, you want me to change what he's doing?
No,
That's what you just said, we're gonna let it keep happening.
No, Tom, what I'm saying is, I don't care if you have 16 curb cuts on Margate Burger's site. This curb cut's there. They're gonna do that whether or not these curb cuts are here or not here. That curb cut's there and staying there. If I don't close this, I don't close this. People do that now with these other curb cuts. So if they're gonna do it with that, they're gonna do it one way or another.
That's not the testimony we heard.
Closing. But Rich. if-
We heard the testimony that the problem went away when they reopened that curb cut on Frontenac Avenue.
I wasn't there. I can't refute that. However, there was a curb cut open here behind the building that allowed cross access.
And when the
So
bank
if you're-
functioned for all those years, it was always in from the one street and out front there. It was always one way.
Exactly. That's,
It's not now.
of course that changed. I'm just saying this is not alien to the site. I guess my point is, and Rich, I understand what you're saying, that when Frontenac Avenue curb cut was chained off, all of a sudden people started shooting through buds to get in this curb cut. I don't know what one thing has to do with the other. But if that's what Mr. Taylor said, I can't disagree with him. John Barnhart is here. I don't necessarily need him to testify. I can rely upon the record from last month and what I've submitted with the letter brief I submitted, as well as Chief Wolfson's report, who quite frankly said this is the best of the plans that yet been submitted.
Did the chief okay this plan?
I gave you a letter from the chief saying that this is the,
I met with the chief also, and he agreed with that.
I noticed, Chris, I drove into that 3 or 4 times around the block and into the lot. And on the corner of Ventnor Avenue was one do not enter sign and one-way sign. But the do not enter sign's crooked, and if it had 2 do not enter signs, one on each corner, I think it would stop people from going down that street more.
and that's a condition of approval, that's fine.
And to stop people going through the gas station, all he needs is a couple cones strategically placed, I would believe, you
I
know?
don't think you're ever gonna stop that, but.
I think I would.
I think we all do it.
I lived in Margate all my life. I've never done that. I didn't even know
people even thought about that until I listened to
You want a gas station guy yelling at you?
No, you don't want Bud, no, you don't want Bud Taylor coming down. I
I've
mean,
never
no.
seen that being done.
Chief-
I'm
Chief-
just talking from experience from growing up here for 60-some years.
Chief Wolfson said, as of January 8th, with regard to the above captioned matter, please be advised that a review of the traffic plan as proposed by the applicant and reviewed on today's date is acceptable to and preferred by this agency.
Chris, can I just follow up on that?
Please.
And obviously I accept this. You made the statement that the chief preferred this, and it's referred to in this note, that he preferred this plan to any he's been shown.
I confirm that, Despina, yes, because I had the same question.
Has he been, I'm familiar with some from being here in November, some of the proposed plans. Was there ever a plan submitted to the chief to have a potential entrance from Ventnor Avenue?
I talked about that with the chief. If you'd like to hear what we discussed, I'll be happy to tell you that.
Just was a formal,
There's never been a plan on paper that showed a curb cut on
Okay.
Ventnor Avenue, so we're not able to do that. I apologize.
Yeah, Chris,
Then I stand corrected, John. You want to address that?
we did a concept,
Does he need to be sworn in?
John,
Yeah,
you were
go
here
ahead.
last time. Let's just do it real quick. Name and address for the record.
John Barnhart, licensed professional engineer, professional planner in the state of New Jersey, address 400 North Dover Avenue, Atlantic City.
And do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how many concepts we prepared to try to accommodate all the concerns around this site with regard to parking. And one of them did have a driveway access off of Ventnor Avenue. And for a multitude of reasons, that was not moved forward. One of them being that the chief was uncomfortable with it. Another being that the county, these blocks are very short. The county having an access, two-way access off of Ventnor Avenue at that location, in my experience, it's something that they weren't going to be willing to approve because of the proximity along Ventnor Avenue between Frontenac or the distance, I'm sorry, between Frontenac and Franklin Avenue. I mean, we looked at this like kind of holistically, saying, okay, if we were starting from scratch, we had a vacant lot, we're in a commercial zone. The city wants a commercial project built on this site. How would we lay it out? We wouldn't lay it out that much differently than what we're here for tonight, because coming in off of Frontenac Avenue, okay, if we have just our single two-way driveway, because frankly, a site this small, from a planning perspective, you really wouldn't propose more than one full access in and out type of driveway. When you come in on Frontenac, if it was a two-way driveway on Frontenac and you move the building here, your issues with regard to the residential neighborhoods, they really aren't any different. Now you're in here, but now you have to go out to go around to get back to the main arteries. The issues with the neighbor across the street, I'm sure it was happening, but unfortunately, that's an enforcement issue, not so much a site plan issue, in my opinion. You know, this location is something that, from an engineering planning perspective, we wouldn't recommend. Your chief wasn't comfortable with, and I don't believe we could get approved through the county anyway. At the end of the day, I think if we had a clean slate, a blank piece of paper, we would end up with something very similar to what we're asking for this evening.
were there other factors besides the Ventnor Avenue entrance on that, just call it the Ventnor Avenue proposal? Were there other things that changed besides just the entrance from Ventnor Avenue? Like, my interest is, were there other things that caused the chief not to like that plan besides the Ventnor Avenue access? Was there additional access in that proposal, or was there the alleyway?
No, what you have is, so you have a driveway, let's just think about it for a second. If you put a driveway in off of Ventnor Avenue, you have Orange Street parking on Ventnor. First of all, you're gonna lose parking. Second of all, when you're coming out, you now have theoretically cars parked on either side of you. You're trying to eke out, you're trying to look to the left, you're trying to look to the right, your sight triangle, your view is blocked pretty dramatically trying to get out of that driveway. And it's always a better plan, if you can, to send your parking, or I'm sorry, your cars to an existing intersection, again, existing controlled intersection. So it's not a good plan from an engineering or a planning perspective, or a safety condition. But no, there were no other. The concept we did basically took this lot, spun it, and had a driveway coming in off of Ventnor Avenue.
That's my thought about that, but on the other side of the street was the person who just gets through the light in the summertime, pulls up to take a left turn in, heading uptown, but stops to take a left turn in. And traffic precludes that from happening. The backup, that would cause back through the intersection. To Castles and beyond, because that's where traffic backs up to now. So that traffic that's backed up to Jerome makes it about 40 feet forward. and it starts all over again. And then you have cycle.
But if you stopped at the red light anyway and there's cars coming the other way, there's still traffic backed up in front of Castle's.
I understand that. I agree. I'm just saying that relief will be limited now to the person who's gonna take a left turn into Margate Burger off Ventnor Avenue. And that backup will continue for that much longer until that person's able to get into the site.
One other thing I did want to mention, Roger made a comment or a request in his report with regard to some level of assisting in control of that access point by way of what was called a mountable curb. If you look at Roger's report, you'll see a detail of it at the back of it. We talked with our client about that, and he's fine with doing that. I would like to sit with Roger and figure out what the geometry of that exactly should be, so it doesn't create a hindrance to pedestrians, but does kind of help to serve a function. So what we're talking about here is some type of little island. Maybe it has a little bit of a curve to it to try to, so that when you're here, let's say you're here, if this is cutting across situation is occurring, you're here and you're looking over to that driveway, you're going to see this
Impediment.
obstruction or impediment that's going to say, well, geez, I'm not going to be able to get in there, so I'm not, and deter you from making that illegal move. So that's something that we are willing to do, and we'll work with, assuming we are fortunate enough to receive approval, we'll work with Mr. McLaren on the right geometry for that.
And also, one of my requests was to add a stop sign with a one-way sign.
Oh, yes, yeah, whatever
And that
signage.
one-way sign should be two-sided too, so you
Yeah,
can see it going
agreed.
the other direction. All right?
Yeah.
This is off of this issue, but from the November meeting, there was an issue with the neighbor, I think he's present, the height of the fence, was that resolved?
What he had asked for, and he's here, and you'll hear from him without question, was to maintain some width to his curb cut, because the way his house is designed, for whatever reason, it's not a usable curb cut to get to his driveway. So when we close on, should we be able to close off the curb cut closest to him, we will leave some width to it to make that turning movement accommodate his car to get into his driveway.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. As you can see, in plan, that dark black line is the closure of that curb cut. You can see we've stopped it short of our property line to help assist him in getting into his driveway.
You'll find out. You'll find out.
Will the neighbors be able to have any input?
It's not open to the public.
Yes. That's it. That's all I have, Mr.
Any
Patterson.
other thing else from the board?
Yeah, if it's approved, Chris, I know
Yes.
Roger made some recommendation for the trees, that would have been the street trees. Are
Yes.
you going to use the same recommendations, but in the planners?
I'd like to.
As far as the
Yeah.
type of tree?
Yeah,
Yes.
whatever.
Could be a real nice. Could be a real nice landscape plan on site. Yes, Mr. Wozniak.
In your narrative in the resubmission, you say,
Could someone turn Clem's microphone on, please?
you say site plan approval complies with the municipality's minor site plan requirements. You talking about just the checklist that says you have to have a survey, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Or are you referring to some kind of criteria in the ordinance for
No,
site plan?
there is no criteria standard, so to speak. It's just compliance with what is required to be submitted.
Yeah, I couldn't find any criteria, that's why I asked the question.
There's not, the ordinance provides for what needs to be submitted and what needs to be shown, and that's what we have demonstrated. Roger does point out one waiver request that I should have made and didn't, and I don't have it at my tip of my finger right now. But that's, Mr. Patterson, that's what we had discussed last month as to what would occur. To supply the board with the revised plan that we discussed, that has been done. Fortunately, we've been able to eliminate the variance as well, and hopefully the board will act in accordance with my request.
Anything else from the board?
Understanding that the curb cut across from Bud's is going to be there one way or another. Thanks.
Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak? Please come up and be sworn in. State your name and be sworn in before you speak.
My name is Amy Side and I live on Frontenac Avenue,
Address?
19 North. I'm
Yes.
right where that horseshoe is.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The first thing that seems very obvious to me, if you have only one way to get in on Franklin Avenue and one way to get out on Franklin Avenue, it's a narrow opening, there's congestion, and you're right next to the corner where cars are trying to get onto Ventnor Avenue. The traffic is going to back up along that Franklin Avenue. All those people who live there are going to have cars idling and stopped trying to get onto Ventnor Avenue. I don't see, people want to be able to get in and out of this burger place easily and quickly. So if they came in from one side on Frontenac and came out on the other side on Franklin, I think it would be much easier. And even, it's not obvious how a customer is going to get into the burger lot. They're driving by, they say, oh, here's a burger lot, now how do we get in? Because if they can't turn down Frontenac Avenue, how many people are going to say, oh, let's go all the way around the block and find that little driveway and come in? Also, I don't remember the bank having a drive-through in use back there. There was always that alleyway there, but I don't think they ever used it as a banking window drive-through. And I still think that that traffic could be diverted somehow through that back alley and help alleviate some of the congestion. And when Mr. Bailenson was saying a business will generate more traffic and it's allowed to generate more traffic, that's true, but the traffic should be confined to the place of the business site, not all of a sudden creating traffic patterns around the whole neighborhood. So the business, you need easy access in and out, and I think that having one entranceway and exitway so close to Ventnor Avenue, where the stop sign is, I can't picture how cars are going to do that. Go out, come in, who's going to wait for who, and now one's waiting to get onto Ventnor Avenue. I see that very undoable.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Name and address, please.
Ron Cooperman, 3 North Frontenac Avenue. I'm directly on the gentleman right next to the Burger King.
Do you swear or affirm this testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, I'm totally confused after listening to Mr. Bailenson. No disrespect. I've lived there my entire life, 65 years. Before I start, I just think we can all agree that there are good laws and there's bad laws. There's logical laws and there's illogical laws. So I just would like for you to take that into consideration. As a young boy, from the earliest time I can remember, the gas station was owned by Lou Tate, and the back alleyway was a junk alleyway. It was filled with old tires, machinery, trash cans, and an oil pit, which used to leak onto my backyard. It was never, ever, ever used as a drive-through when the gas station was there. Once he sold it to Collective Federal, and it went through several different bank changes, but then there were always banks there. That's when they cleaned up the back alleyway. At one point, it was also never used as a drive-through the entire time as a bank. At one point, they painted in 3 parking spaces in the back there, and they tried to use that back alleyway for parking spaces. After a little while, they gave up because it was just too incredibly hard to try to back out and move the car in and out and go back and forth.
All this testimony is on the record from you already. Do you have anything new to address?
Yes, I do.
Please.
And then they put a dumpster there, and therefore it was never used. So what I want to do is, a lot of this is about the traffic patterns, and it's about parking spaces. How many of you remember the Captain's Galley on Douglas Avenue? Do you remember that? Boy, did they give you a piece of fish. I overhung the plate. I always got the Parmesan something. I ate there all the time. I thought it was fantastic. They had no parking that I was ever aware of. There were lines to get in, and I thought it was fabulous. The only reason I heard that it went out of business is that he gambled it away. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. How many of you remember Stewart's?
Please address the issues.
I am.
You spoke for over 20 minutes last time. You can't speak that
Well,
long. Address the issues
I am.
before us now.
This is very important because I'm addressing the parking issue. So Stewart's didn't have any on-site parking whatsoever. They didn't have any restrooms whatsoever. It was a viable.
I didn't realize Stewart's was on this property.
No,
Address the issue or I'm going to cut you off.
I'm making a comparison.
Address the issue here.
All right. The bottom line is you're closing in open space if you grant this variance. I've asked several people what they thought of the Margate burger. Almost without exception, the response I've gotten is that it's decent but not worth it. What I know is, as a stockbroker for 35 years, if you don't have margins and you don't have the proper cash flow, no matter what you do, the business isn't going to survive. So what I want you to think about is if this is granted and placed and the business doesn't survive, then you've gone all through this. Now you have all that closed-in space sitting there. Now what's going to happen? That's one issue, all right, because you have to hope that it's successful. The next thing is they were talking about moving the dumpster. Is that still going to happen where they want to put the dumpster back, or is the dumpster staying where it's at?
That is not an issue before the board tonight. We're here to address a minor site plan.
All right. The only thing is
there is no variances requested, so that's not a problem.
All right. Let me just hand you these pictures so you can, you guys can view these pictures.
I'll call these Cooperman 1 series of pictures.
Excuse me. All right. As far as my particular property, if you look at the first picture, if you look at the first picture, the driveway apron of the Margate burger is exactly 15 feet long. It's made up of 3 5-foot concrete pads. In the event that you do grant this variance, what I would request, well, if you do grant this addition, whatever you want to call it, asking that you at least leave the last 5-foot pad, because as far as encroachment on the driveway, being able to get in and out of my driveway, what I said last time is there used to be an apron between our driveways, and it was literally impossible to get into my driveway. I had to make 3- and 4-point turns. There's always cars across the street because of the people that live in the apartment building. So it would be, if you only leave a couple feet, I still won't be able to get into my driveway. Yes,
Can I get in on this a second?
yes,
This is your 10 feet that you're marking?
yeah,
Do you realize that fence is?
yes, I do.
He
But
can
it's-
move that fence over next to
I
your
do,
driveway?
but it's been there for 65 years.
I'm still saying he can still
Okay.
move that fence.
Well, the
I
other.
just want you to be aware of that.
No, I understand that. The other problem that I have is I'm a 3-car family. I only have 1 parking space because at this point, my driveway has always been too narrow to use past the house. I can only pull 1 car up in my driveway. So everybody parks there, from the post office, the businesses. You know, there's probably the most congested block in Margate, in my opinion.
Did you
So,
miss my point?
yes.
You missed my point.
No, I didn't miss your point. I understand.
That'll destroy your driveway.
It's already destroyed.
He moves it 15 inches, it's gonna make it impossible for you.
Then I won't even have 1 parking space.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. All right, so the other thing that I'm asking is, I understand that you're trying to make the business more profitable, and I don't have any issues with that. But because I'm right next to the property, if you look at the last picture, and I addressed this with Roger, there was a motion light there, and they did what they could, and Dr. Pastore did what he could, and they put shields on the lights there, but I have lights shining on my house through the entire night. Before Roger, I talked to the other Roger, and I didn't come to any of the meetings. And the only thing I asked is, when they put the equipment on the roof, just please move it as far forward as you can. Ruben said that would be what they would do. Obviously, that can happen. I had this discussion with, Roger here. So there's the condenser there. You hear the hum when I sit on my front porch. So I'm the only one that's subject to that. So I have the hum, I have the lights, I have the issue with the parking and the congestion. What I would like to do is just food for thought. Because he has the whole upstairs, there's already plumbing, there's already electric there. In my opinion, you could put bathrooms upstairs. You could put storage upstairs. You could even put cooking facilities upstairs. Or if you move some of the things upstairs without increasing the footprint, because you already have the building there, what you could do is take the other half of the building on the Franklin side, make that all seating, make that all bathrooms, and the upstairs could be seating or cooking. You could put a dumbwaiter in there to run it down. Or you could put seating up top, because the reason I was talking about the Captain's Galley and some of these other places is I had absolutely no issue walking up 1 or 2 flights of stairs to get a good meal. Everybody did it. It was not an issue. So there's plenty of space upstairs that I think is completely wasted. I understand when he first built the place, he didn't want seating.
Okay, sir, again,
That's not
it's
what
not up to us to decide how he does his business.
Well, no,
This
I'm
has
not-
nothing to do with it. He is not open to suggestions.
Okay, I was just trying
So
to make a
if you're
suggestion.
done, we're going to call someone else to come forward.
Right, and then the last thing I would ask is if you are closing, it would be a request because there's a ballard there. Because my driveway and the one parking space I have is so narrow, I can't fully open the door. So if in the event it's granted, I would hope that maybe at least that ballast was moved, I could at least open my door.
That's on his property.
These are issues that you need to address
On
with
his
him,
property.
not with
I'm
us.
just, it's just a suggestion because.
I would
it's-
suggest you
it's-
talk to him and there are
Okay.
issues that you can deal with him. I'm only saying this because we have no,
I understand.
power
I
over
understand.
that.
Well, I was just trying to make suggestions, so,
okay. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to comment? Please come forward, state your name, address, and be sworn in.
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Shapiro. I live at 3850 Atlantic Avenue, Atlantic City, New Jersey.
You
I'm-
swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I work at Taylor's Golf, and I stand witness as to what occurs on that corner. And I guess I would be the authority. Something that Mr. Balinson mentioned is that you have a historical situation that exists here of pre-existing functions on that property. With regard to myself, I don't want to get run over. 50% of his summertime clientele comes through that lot. And this is not an exaggeration. I have no malice towards these people whatsoever. I have no objection. I'm not here. You have a bad situation. The people coming down that street come through or else illegally access his property by going up. I'll demonstrate here.
Take a microphone, please. It should be.
Okay. Franklin Avenue, there's a stop sign here, stop sign there, there's a do not enter, do not enter. This one's a little crooked. There are additional ones back here at the back of the gas station property so that if somebody had turned out of the gas station, they would know not to. You're on. Yes, I know. I just recommend they do a traffic study. Simply put, do the traffic study. It's in here. I'm not into wrecking this man's business. This is a totally illogical situation. It was, the far side was closed till the first week of August of 2016, the year that they opened. for the first 2.5 months, I have been struck by automobiles that actually come up and hit you. I don't know what else I could possibly say. Sorry, I'm so jittery. I'm getting ready for back surgery next week. So I was just happy to say my piece. I think you ought to rethink this. Unfortunately, the building is not back further to utilize that back space to maybe have people pull in the front. But as it stands right now, people coming off of the beach in the weekends, they pile in there starting at 4 o'clock. They're dropping off their kids, boom. I mean, I watch this weekend in, weekend out, and it's, again, I have nothing against anybody here. It's just, I'm here for my safety. I've seen people walking down Ventnor Avenue dodging cars, and I've never seen a bit of enforcement by the police department with regard to all the people that access into that property through the one street pulling in, or else, again, through the Taylor property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public that would like to comment?
About that phone.
Public portion is closed. Any other comments from the board? Would you,
I think that there just needs to be better signage on that corner. Now, I saw one way, an arrow, and I saw one do not enter that was twisted sideways. And if you had 2 signs out front there, I think it would be very much more visible, and people.
And that would stop our summer people from doing that. Yeah.
It's
Hey,
debatable,
Greg.
I know, it's debatable.
Greg, we had lots of signage at Wawa with City Hall and the fire department, and we had to put a concrete barrier to stop the people. Signage ain't gonna do it.
Signage won't help you.
Roger, your report recommends a stop sign and a one-way sign. I just want to get that straight. You're recommending 2.
A stop sign and a one-way sign, double-sided, so it's visible from the gas station and from the site.
And that's not there now?
It's not there now.
There's an arrow sign that says one way on one side.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Is it do not enter on one corner.
Okay, but what you're recommending in your report is,
For this site in particular, yes.
okay.
And we're open to any additional signage that we come up with as a result of this.
And I believe they're open to the option of like a little teardrop concrete barrier, that if you're cutting across that parking lot, you will see an obstruction that you might,
That's fine.
What's your, what do you feel about moving the trees? Is that okay in your opinion?
I prefer to see them in tree pits in the sidewalk.
I would too.
And I think that's the intent of the
Yeah,
green team.
right.
I hear you.
You know our green team.
I hear you.
Okay.
All right, and Roger, is this a minor site plan? Or-
Minor site plan, minor amended site plan.
Okay.
Does anybody remember when Bud parked his pickup truck across the driveway?
Black pickup truck?
When they closed that one down? How did that work out?
I don't remember. I
I
don't
wish
know.
Bud was here today.
I don't know. I just know that opening's gonna be there whether this is approved or not approved. So that, I don't know that condition's gonna be alleviated. Maybe that needs to be looked at a different way. Police department, whatever.
One additional request, Chris, and
Yes.
I think it's minor, in order to address one of Mr. Cooper's comments, I think we can probably drop those rear lights down a little bit.
That's fine. Whatever you wanna do back there. Can we talk to you about it with some kind of
Yes.
modified lighting plan for the back?
Right.
That's fine. The 5-foot extension of that curb cut closing, if you think that will work, if that's too much.
John and I can go over the geometry on that.
That's fine, thanks. With respect to the sidewalks, Roger, I think we looked at, Ventnor Avenue is probably okay not to be replaced, but on the side streets, once we do the curb cut closures, I think that's gonna need to be done.
Right. They have to be ADA compliant.
Yeah. And you read both reports, the city engineers and Roger reports,
Yes.
you're okay with everything?
Yes.
And the waivers, Roger, we're just gonna say, refer to.
Chris
the
submitted a
engineer.
letter to the engineer asking for the waivers. I haven't heard anything from the engineer contrary to that, and I would agree to the waiver.
And
No.
Roger, are the trees
No.
gonna be in the ground?
Yes.
You're out of order, sir.
Trees
It's
and-
over. Public portion is over.
Public portion's closed. Okay. Sure.
The one photo Mr. Kuzma did show the illumination on the building. Can you make sure that you can put a cover on?
We just talked
Yeah, we're
about
gonna
it.
do some modified lighting to the satisfaction of the, to the board planner and zoning officer. All right, you heard the testimony. You are limited. It's a permitted use and no variances are requested. It's just a site plan application. It has to be focused on on-site issues. What may be occurring off-site as a result is not really relevant, but what we need is a motion for minor site plan approval, plus the waiver set forth in the board engineer's report, or the city engineer's report, together with the following conditions. The applicant will work with the board planner for, to install some sort of deterrent to pedestrians and motoring people cutting across the gas station site. The applicant will comply with all conditions set forth in both Mr. McLaurin's report of January 24th, 2018, and the city engineer's report of January 15, 2018, unless we've modified those conditions. The applicant will comply with all other representations made during the course of the hearing, which includes the conditions with respect to the trees, any additional signage that might be required, and the final condition will be that the applicant will submit some sort of modified lighting plan to be approved by the board planner.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Point of clarification. Do we vote yes, no, or can you give
You can give your reasons, certainly. Yes, no, and your reasons for your vote.
He was just saying the reasons have to be for on-site conditions. So on-site is important.
Tom Collins?
To me, this is a really difficult thing because I think the burger operation is a nice operation. I think the way that the site plan has been, this is our third pass at a site plan, and every time the business plan doesn't perform, we look at another site plan. I don't know if a site plan is the reason that it's not performing. I also think that we're ignoring our opportunity to really take a look at a traffic flow. And we were going to get a traffic study on the very first one, if everybody remembers. I remember. And then it was expensive. They didn't want to get into it. But now we're into the third one. We are impacting that site, and the proposal of what's on that site will impact the city of Margate. I just don't see it, so I vote no.
Clem Wozewski?
Well, first, I want to restate my concern that I mentioned at the previous meeting, that the project that were shown here on these drawings, in my opinion, cannot be constructed the way it's presented because of requirements of the construction code. I realize that's not under our review, but it does contradict what we're supposed to be considering. Other than that, the road pattern in this area is very unusual. I don't think there's anything else like it in Margate, in that it concentrates traffic from four directions onto this one intersection at Franklin and Ventnor. Any traffic coming down Frontenac from Ventnor Avenue, up Frontenac from Winchester Avenue, out of the burger bar, or out of the gas station, all concentrated at this one point, which causes considerable situations, especially in the summertime. I particularly noted at our last meeting on this project that the gentleman who has the gas station pointed out that This has been a concern in the past and would certainly get worse with this added load onto the intersection. In my opinion, the site simply cannot handle the intensity of development that would come about with this project. I listened to Chris's presentation relative to the laws in place which apparently limit our ability on this project, but rules by their nature are general, and when you apply them to a specific situation, sometimes they just don't make sense. I think this is one of those situations, and if we vote to approve this, I think we're doing a great disservice to our town. I vote no on the application.
Rich Patterson?
When this first came before the board, it seemed to me the answer was the alleyway behind it, to have people drive through there. People for this project and people against the project were all against that, and I see their point. It would be an unsafe condition. But what I see here is that you are creating an on-site condition that is providing unsafe access to the site. This is a matter of your own creation on your site, and I have to vote no.
Mike Cristaldi?
Wow. I see it a little bit different. We've got Boca up the street with no parking. We've got other places in town where we have traffic jams. I don't want to see an abandoned lot there, an abandoned building, because we pushed the building into bankruptcy because of no other way to get to it. I can't see a lot of reasons to vote against it, because I don't see any better way of doing it. I had suggested moving the building to Chris earlier. Apparently that doesn't work well because of the curb. I've got to vote yes for it.
Jim Galantino?
You know, Mike just brought up a good point. The next corner up, you have Starbucks, you have Dunn, you have the Dino's, you have the dress shop, all have no parking. And we approved them all. This site went from a gas station to a bank to a mini golf that we approved. You sat on the board with me, and a burger bus.
This place we should approve this place with no parking. It'd be safer with no parking. I'm serious.
I was thinking that myself, but I didn't want to say that. I was wishing you did. It's a tough one. I mean, I would have rather seen the mini golf because I thought that was a great idea, but you know, that's hindsight now. As to the minor site plan, and that's what Chris is here for, I vote yes. I don't see a problem with it.
Craig Palmisano?
It's a tough corner. There are a lot of businesses in Margate that the entrances to the business are not ideal. And I think everyone needs some kind of indoor seating. Otherwise, you're limited to like 3 months of the year. There's another nine months, you know, you have to survive down here. And the gas station, problem with the gas station, that gas station's had a boat in the lot there for 20 years. And a broken van in the lot for 20 years. That's no beauty there, the gas station itself. I don't see the real big problem. I mean, people park on Frontenac Avenue to go to Starbucks and go around the corner and come out, and the chief of police is for it. He thinks it's okay, and since the chief thinks that the site plan is okay, I think it's okay. I vote for it.
Despina Hess?
And this is one where the presentation really, I came in and was here for the prior presentation, was familiar with the requirements to meet your burden for the approval of minor site plan. And, even my own review of case law would seem to allow consideration of known dangerous conditions. But yet I have to balance, we have unexpectedly, even though we did receive it, the letter from the chief of police saying he's reviewed every other potential traffic pattern and he deems this safe. And I have to give that its weight. And then I have the, calling them laypersons, but, just neighbors, including the individual that works at the gas station, giving us his personal knowledge that he sees on a daily basis. So certainly that should be given some weight as well. I understand, Chris, and I agree with you that we need to consider on-site reasons. It does appear through appellate law that there is permitted some consideration of known dangerous conditions, which we gained from the closing off of that front neck opening. But I still have to weigh the chief versus chief's agreement with this as it deemed a safe pattern, and I'm surprised, but because of that, and truly because of that alone, I'll vote in favor of the minor site plan.
Remy Pelosi?
I agree, I'm gonna vote yes. This, am I on the microphone? This condition, this curb cut already exists. They're not adding something. So, yes, it may be
I
dangerous.
can't
but
hear you.
it's-
Is there a mic on?
Yes.
The curb cut already exists. The police chief approves it and thinks this is the best proposal for traffic. We're not adding a new condition. All options have been considered, and this is the best. This is a difficult location. It's a small commercial lot. I think it will improve the Margate Burger place. I mean, I don't see anyone there ever. I would like it to be a successful business for Margate. I think it is a better site plan, and I approve it.
Mike Richmond?
It's a minor site plan approval. There's no variances. They're providing parking. We talk all the time about how we want to support businesses in Margate. This guy's trying to make it go of it. He's already put a lot of money into it. I vote yes.
Application passes 5-3.
Thank you.
6-3.
Thank you.
6-3. 6-3.
Next case is Davco Construction, Inc., 213 North Delavan Avenue, Block 404.02, Lot 7, in the S25 district to gain a C variance for setback of a garage to an adjacent structure and possibly others. Taxes in order are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLaurin, can I ask you a question before you go?
Yes, you may.
I don't understand why we're hearing this case. I thought the determination was that if it was due to
But it's still-
nonconformance on a neighbor's property, that we didn't need a variance. That was the ruling on Lancaster Avenue.
It's in the book. We got to get rid of it. That's the intent.
But we didn't get a variance on Lancaster Avenue, so why do we need a variance here?
Because it's in the ordinance. They were going to contest it, and they knew it was going to pass the variance, so they decided not to.
Who? These people?
No. We need to correct the ordinance. There's two issues that are similar to this.
But why didn't they need a variance? That's my question.
Rich, this was a different provision of the ordinance. This deals with the garage and the 5 feet separation versus a house and a 10-foot separation. So it's
That's a difference?
there's a distinction between the two controls, yes.
One and not the other. And they fixed one.
Is this gonna be
changed one,
fixed?
not
One
the
was
other.
fixed, one was fixed and one wasn't. It should have been fixed together.
Are we going to fix this one? Thank you. You may proceed.
You want me to just proceed?
No, I want him to proceed. You, I apologize, you have to be here.
Well, in a nutshell, this is a definition of a hardship case where the project presented to us is in full compliance with the bulk standards of that particular property, but because of the nonconformance issue of the neighboring property, it creates a nonconformance of this property's garage. The intent is to correct the ordinance to get rid of this situation, but this is clearly a hardship case created by the neighbor's property, not this property. That's it.
I will rely on Roger's report, Roger's comments, and the preliminary comments, and the proposed ordinance change, rather than take up any more of your time. The issue is that I can't maintain the 5 feet between the new garage and the house next door, because the house next door has a non-conforming setback. And it results in me being about 8 inches away from the 5 feet I need. There's nothing I can do about the neighbor's garage. In fact, my garage is actually set back a foot when it could be on the property line, give an extra 12 inches, and I still don't make the 5 feet. So I would ask that the board recognize the hardship and otherwise rely on what's been submitted in the comments so far. The board, if you'd like additional comment, I'm happy to say something, but it's excellent. Oh, good, Rich.
Are you done? Any questions from the board? Anyone here from the public that would like to speak? Please state your name and address and be sworn in.
Hello, my name's Steve Bertolino. I own the property at 211 North Delavan Avenue.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I got the registered letter, the other day, and I own the property. We purchased the property 22 years ago. We're next door to 213. I just was able to read the agenda here, and I see and I've heard that there's some sort of nonconformance on the property adjacent to the property. Now, I'm with all due respect, I've never been in a meeting like this, so I'm not sure of a lot of terminology. Is this the non-conforming property? Is it my property?
Your house is causing his proposed garage to be non-conformance.
Okay, so
You don't have to do anything.
Okay, so my property, the property that I own, was built, I think, in 1953, and we've never done any exterior kind of reconstruction to the
It
house.
doesn't meet your current
fine.
standards. You're grandfathered in, you don't have any problems. If your house was rebuilt today, you wouldn't meet those standards, but your house exists and it's fine.
Okay, so can someone explain to me what the nonconformance issue is?
Yes. His garage is allowed to be on a property line. Our ordinance requires detached garages to be 5 feet away from the adjacent principal structure, which is your house. He's less than 5 feet, so technically he needs a variance. Even though he fully complies with the ordinance, the position of your house and your property, because it was built a long time ago without the same standards, is causing a hardship on his property.
If your house was built today, it would be further than 5 feet from where his garage is.
Okay.
But you don't have to do anything.
But if I didn't want that to be, then I'd have to appear like him and ask for your permission to do what he wants to do. So, see, my concern is that the property, we haven't done much to it. We tried to keep it presentable and make it look nice, but it's a summer home. I'm not going to stand there and lie. I mean, but the idea was we're going to retire here, and I'm 58 years old. We're going to probably within the next 3 to 5 years, I'm maybe standing before you asking you for permission to do something with the house. I want to be a big home, but we plan to live here when we retire. So one of my concerns is, I'm glad the property's being improved, but how's this going to affect me at a later date when I want to do something? I mean, the house is 900. I think my house is 960 square feet. It's small. I mean, to live in it all year round, it's a bit small. So I want to.
5 years from now, when you come in with house plans for a new house, you will comply, and there won't be any hardship caused by the new house next to you.
Okay, now there is. There's a couple other issues. One is the house does have a. My house does have a large. I think it's like 18-inch soffit. It's just a little unusually large soffit. So that's when I'm visualizing the garage structure, at that
It's to the
point.
foundation of your house.
Right, but you're going to have a garage that's probably you're going to have a building that's 2.5 feet from my gutter.
His garage is permitted to be at the property line.
It's permitted to be at the property line.
Correct.
All right, so then why is he asking for, I'm confused now, why they needed a
Because your
variance?
house was built before his house, and your house is too close to the property line for him to comply with a 5-foot separation.
According to today's standards, not the standards when your house was built.
So there was, so there's no reason for me to, I guess there's no reason for me to, like, in other words, there's no reason for me to
You're fine,
object.
you're fine.
Well, all right, so, I mean, I don't know, I'm not here to give anybody a problem or anything like that. I'm just trying to understand what, what's going to happen here, okay? One, now, there's a current driveway there, and when people do pull in, and it hasn't been used that often over the years, but, because it's very narrow, but when people do pull in, they do, there's a picture there, you can see the aprons, I don't know what you call it, apron, curb cutout, I'm not, but when they do pull in, they're usually driving on, to get straight into the driveway, they're usually driving on the little 3-foot sidewalk.
He's
that's
actually
my property.
going to start over, tear everything down and redo it, so none of that's gonna count.
Okay.
And where your house is fine, and if you tear your house down, you could build exactly what he's doing
I don't
on
think
your
he said he
lot.
was tearing his house down. He wants to.
Right, see, that's
he wants to
the other issue is
He wants
like,
to put an addition.
I may want to put a second floor on this house, I don't know that I want to rebuild the entire house,
But where
that's all I'm
this
saying.
garage is, we might approve it or disapprove it, but where this garage is should not have an effect on.
Right, and again, let me be clear, I'm not here to say that I don't want the garage. I really don't know, to be honest with you, whether it's gonna be okay or not. I know that, I've been over there, I kinda looked at the space. I know that I think there's gonna be air conditioning units on top of the garage, which is a little bit of a concern to me because of the noise and whatnot. I mean, you're taking the garage, you're saying it's gonna be on the property line, and then, how close it's gonna be. It's gonna be closer to his structure.
It's gonna comply with the ordinance.
Okay. Well, again, I just wanted to, come, see what was gonna happen here, transpire, and just tell you who I am and what my concerns were.
It should have no bearing, if you want to do anything on your property, whether we approve it or disapprove it, should have no bearing on where this garage is.
Okay. I just wanted to say one thing before I go. I remember 22 years ago, and I wanted to put a shed in my yard. And I think I talked to Jim about it. And I wanted to put like I don't know, an 8x10 shed or something. And so I go through all this stuff, and my wife's yelling at me like, what's so hard about putting a shed? Why can't you just do it? And I come back with a shed that's got to be, I think, 7 feet from the rear and 15 feet from the side. So we were going to enjoy our little backyard with a just shed like in the center of it. So I don't know if those rules have changed, but obviously
They have.
They have. Yeah, because I see a lot of structures in corners and so forth. And now this is going to be, I think, six inches from the rear of the property. So I just wanted to, appear and state my case and just voice some concerns that I had. And, obviously you're the professional.
Well, I just hope we alleviated your concerns.
Yeah, you will make your decision based on your, what you think is right. So
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, is there gonna be a fence down the driveway at all? Do you know? It's not on the plan. That was my only concern for the neighbor.
I don't know, don't know.
A fence can only be
Prob-
where it's approved.
Probably not, because it would affect our driveway in the same manner. But I don't know one way or another.
Is there a minimum, Roger, for the driveway width that we have to have?
Yes.
Has to contain a 9x18 space. Has to be at least 9 feet wide.
I'm sorry, what is it?
Has to be at least 9 feet wide.
That's all, right? 9 feet. That's pretty small.
Yeah, but that's what it is.
That's what it is.
But it's gonna be
I
10.
know it is, but that's.
But that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Tomorrow.
It's on the list.
We're wasting time. Do you have anything else? Anyone else in the public? Public portion is closed. Anything else from the board?
All right, we need
Leo?
a motion for C variance relief to permit the detached garage on the subject property to be 4.375 feet to the adjacent principal structure where 5 feet is required, and the conditions will be anything in Mr. McLaren's report dated January 24th, 2018, unless otherwise addressed.
I'll make a motion. Okay.
Tom Collins?
I vote in favor. This is very de minimis. I see no negative impacts to the neighborhood. The fact that we're getting a brand-new residence in the neighborhood is only going to improve the value. So it's all upside for the city. So I vote yes.
Clem Wasleski?
Tom left nothing to be said. I agree with everything that he did say, and I vote in favor.
Rich Patterson?
I agree with everything Clem said. I vote yes.
Mike Richmond?
It's a hardship case, I vote yes.
Mike Cristaldi?
I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
Yes.
Craig Palmisano?
Yes.
Application passes 7-0.
Next case is Scott and Michelle Taroff, 409 North Lancaster Avenue, Block 613.02, Lot 5 in the S40 district to grant C variances for front yard setback, side yard setback, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLaren?
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. My report is in reference to 409 North Lancaster Avenue. Keep it simple. They are requesting two variances, one for the front yard setback for the porch, whereas the prevailing setback is 17.2 feet and 14 feet is proposed. And the other variance identified is for building coverage, whereas 30% is the maximum permitted and 31.8% is proposed. This will be a new flood-compliant house. My comments are minimal, and the recommendations, in particular to the C1 and C2 criteria, should be adhered to. And that concludes my report.
Mr. Goldstein?
Mr. Chairman, Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicants. With me this evening, Michelle and Scott Taroff. Michelle's probably going to testify a little bit, so she'll be sworn in. Mr. Manos, as well as Tom Baglivo, a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, will be giving testimony regarding the design of the house itself. Just by way of a couple bookkeeping items, the plans that you all have in front of you do not have the zoning chart. Mr. McLaren had pointed that out. We have supplied the zoning chart now, which Mr. Baglivo is going to walk us through. One thing also very important, I'm sure everybody has been by the property. With regard to the porch setback, it's kind of a strange street because you've got homes along the street. They must have all been designed around the same time, where the principal structure is actually equal to or further closer to the street than the porch. The porches are tucked back in behind the principal structure. So to the extent when we discuss the variance for the front yard porch, we're actually 3 feet further back on the building, but 3 feet further out on the porch because, and a good example is the house directly next door, you've got the porch less, the porch is actually further from the street than the house. So I know that the board is very concerned about skewing future variances for setbacks, but in this case, really this kind of straightens it out. So having said that, I want Michelle to testify a little bit because there is a bit of importance about what they're attempting to do here. I'm sure the board is aware this lot is a pretty good sized lot, and coming in for variances on a decent sized lot, always a bit of a challenge because we don't have...
Our president will call it huge.
Huge for Margate standards, that's one way, Mr. Chairman, but certainly there is a reason, obviously, that we would be here, not just asking for something to ask for. Michelle, you're going to have to be sworn in. So.
Okay, and just state your name and address, and I'll swear you in.
Michelle Taroff, 105 South Mansfield Avenue.
And do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thanks.
So, Michelle, I know this is a little bit hard for you, and the board obviously needs to know why we're asking for these variances, but
you purchased this house, you're a resident in Margate, currently on Mansfield, right?
Yes, yes,
And you purchased this house to have a little bit more room because you have an issue within your family, correct?
yes.
Explain what that is and
Okay.
what we're gonna try to do to fix some of the problems getting around.
My parents lived in Ventnor, and sorry, my mom passed away in December of 16, and my dad moved in with us. He's 87, and one of the main reasons that we wanted to do this, our house now currently does not have an elevator, and we wanted to put one in for him. My husband's parents also live in Ventnor, and in preparation of, should one of them or both of them have to come in with us too, making it easier. We're doing 2 levels, but still looking for the elevator to help them.
And we had discussed this, and I mentioned this to the, Mr. McLaren, and sent out some emails earlier. You don't necessarily want an elevator. This isn't for something for you and your husband. You're obviously able to walk up and down a
Right.
2-story house. It's not a 2.5-story house, but this will allow your father in and out, correct?
It will allow him in and out, easy in and out, and easy up and down the steps. Right now, we do have steps, and you know, he comes down them holding on 1 step at a time,
Sure.
and just to make it easier for him.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. I know it's hard. Thank you.
I understand that and sympathize, but do we need a variance to have an elevator?
No. What we're going to discuss, Mr. Chairman, is we've cut some space out of the house, and Mr. Baglivo is going to testify to this. We're really down to, on the percentages, the square footage that the elevator takes up. So, but for the elevator, we would comply, not on the front yard, and Mr. Baglivo is going to talk about that as well, but as to the building coverage, the space that we're slightly over. And, you know, we come before the board and say, it's just 1%. And your response back is, exactly, it's just 1%. Cut it out, which is obviously something we could do.
How many square feet is the house? In excess of 3,000?
It is. It is in excess of 3,000. Tom, why don't you come up and get sworn so we can have some questions back and forth to the board, and it's 3120.
You just state your name and business address, and I'll swear you in.
Tom Baglivo, 301 East Germantown Pike, East Norriton.
Good enough. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Baglivo, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes.
Manos, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Baglivo's testified before this board on many occasions. He simply asks that you accept his credentials as a professional, so he doesn't have to go through that again.
I do, but I have a comment before because you haven't been here since we've made this determination. Your plans were so incomplete until this morning. If you come before the board again with plans that incomplete, we will not hear the case.
Okay. And just by way of clarification, Mr. Chairman, I certainly want to explain dates, because this is important. The plans were due January 3rd. January 1st, Monday, January 2nd, the 3rd was Wednesday, the blizzard was Thursday. There was a little bit of a push to get it in, so Mr. Baglivo obviously had a chance to put his plans together a little bit better for tonight, but we understand that, and we apologize.
Okay,
for
I've
any
told the other
confusion.
architects, I just wanted to make it clear. So it's,
And just historically, our drawings are normally 7 or 8 pages, and they're pretty thorough, and I think.
okay.
you know,
I have
mean,
no problem with that.
Absolutely.
Right, okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Comment, I agree.
All right, Tom.
The information was not there, so you can't see what's not there.
If you could, we're going to focus first on the elevator and the square footage of the elevator and the percentages. Just walk the board through the way you've designed this house, specifically noting that
Okay.
we've got a couple issues Mr. McLaren had pointed out. We've got, I'm sorry, Mr. Wozleski. Okay, do you want me to pass
I
around?
don't know if that's enough, but.
Clem, do you want me to pass around the actual mounted board?
Wait more. I wasn't sure how many you made. Conceptually, when we do, I'm going to repeat a lot of stuff that everybody knows. When you do a 3-story house, you normally put an elevator. You get 50% for your 3rd floor, so you got the extra square footage. We almost never put elevators in 2-story houses. The house originally designed as drawn on these drawings currently is, the coverage is 1626, which is about 2.5% over the allowable. Since the blizzard and the submission, we've actually tweaked the plan, and we're trying to get the plan a little smaller. We actually got it down to 1590 for the floor plate coverage, which is 31.17%. So we're asking for 1.17%. The original square footage we were over is equivalent to 25 square feet on the first floor for the elevator, 25 square feet on the second floor, a little bit of square footage for a mechanical room, and a little bit of square footage for the vestibule to exit the elevator into the outside. So we're basically, if we remove the elevator, the mechanical room, and the vestibule, we would be just under the 30% coverage. So that's really what we're trying to do. So the elevator is the delta of why the house is a little bit bigger.
So what is,
Why not take something else out instead of the elevator? Make another room smaller.
Well, when we went from the 1626 square feet to 1590, we did cut about 1.5 feet off the whole house and made the width smaller.
So just for the board's clarification, even with the zoning chart you now have, there's been additional square footage cut out of the house since this morning. So we're down to 1590 as the overall square footage of the coverage. Right now,
That's what's required as a maximum.
Yeah, required is 1530. And we're, right, and the 31.8 on there is not
Mike,
accurate.
turn on a
It's little lower
microphone,
than that.
please.
It's like 31.1.
so are you saying that you're 60 feet, square feet over on the
Yes.
envelope?
that's correct.
Yeah, 60 square feet, correct. It was 96.
Are we going for setback or are we going for coverage?
We're
Well,
going
it's
to,
both. So it's coverage, principal structure, also setback just to the porch.
yeah, the house is actually adequate, actually pushed back.
I'm getting that.
So we can make the porch a little bigger. So what we did is we took the house and pushed it back 3 feet and made the porch 6 feet bigger, but we're only 3 over the prevailing setback.
Your porch is 12 feet, I've got that.
Right, right. So we have 3 feet on our porch and 60 feet on lot coverage.
How wide, what's the depth of your porch?
Yes. 12.2, and it's a little thinner on the recess where the office comes out on the right-hand side.
Can you tell me what the measurement is to the sidewalk? Is it the sidewalk line that we're showing from the front porch to the sidewalk?
Yeah, that's the 14 is to the
That's
property.
14 feet
14
to the
property line.
property line, so the sidewalk is
Right
inside?
here.
No, the sidewalk's about a foot farther out, because
Farther out.
I live 2 houses away.
So there's,
42.
so there's approximately 15 feet of grass that will be showing.
Correct.
You got that?
You'll have
One at
about-
a time.
You'll have about 15 feet of grass.
Sorry about that.
It's a masonry porch too, it's not wood. Looks like culture stone.
Yes.
So
Yep.
it's
Yeah, it's
solid.
not-
And again, I'm
One
sorry.
of the issues, Eric, here is that most people come in with 6-foot front porches, 7-foot front porches, and they still try to get a variance, and we don't like to do that, you know that. Here you got a 12-foot tube.
It's a decent sized porch, a lot of that,
But you're asking us then, if we grant this variance, then we actually change the setback for the whole street.
correct.
All because you want a bigger porch than 90% of them in Margate.
Well, that's
I mean,
why we
you could
took- that's
squeeze
why
that
they gave
down.
up- well, they gave up- The reason, if I could speak to you guys, the reason why they wanted the porch bigger is they were willing to give up the yard, because that's where they spend all their time.
And
12-foot
unfortunately,
too
But
is-
Margate's not willing to give up the yard.
Right.
That's the point.
one of the issues that we're cognizant about, and I think we're gonna have to
Way
look at,
oversized.
it's a decent sized porch, but there may have to be a wheelchair on the porch. So it's a good sized porch, yeah. I mean, that's a design aspect. It's important for the applicants to have some outdoor space. Their kids aren't at home, but it is 2 grown adults with a third adult who has trouble getting around. So the idea was more room on the porch, pushing the house back a bit, and then obviously the issue relating to the elevator, which is the square footage coverage of the house.
You might be better taking 2 feet off the porch and sliding the house back and getting a rear yard variance so we don't affect the whole street and the whole neighborhood.
You know, we had thought about that, and I guess the issue was we had to pick our poison as to what would be the least difficult for the neighbors. You know, we don't like to push back into the rear, and along the street, the homes are all further forward. It's just the porches are not.
Moving back a foot or 2 from that 17 feet in the back does not affect anybody but you. Moving 2 or 3 feet forward affects the whole street. So the least impact would be to slide the house back.
Rich, you're saying slide the entire house back 3 feet, get just a variance in the back and no variance in the front.
Or split
Could you
it and make
speak
the
into
porch.
the microphone, Tom, please?
Oh,
There's
I have it
two
on.
there.
Or split it and take a little bit off the front porch.
And a little,
So
and
you
a
could still
little
have a 10-foot front porch and then take a foot and a couple inches. Am I saying that right, Rich?
Yeah, then we could take 1 foot 2 in the back, then.
May we have just a minute to discuss with the applicants? Obviously,
Can I-
great idea.
Before you do that, I have a technical question.
Yes.
Where do you get on the elevator? From the ground floor?
There's a vestibule door that's not shown on here on the side.
Vestibule door.
Where is
The
it? I
elevator
don't
door
see it.
shows it opening on, into the first floor. Right, I see that door.
That's the elevator door?
But that door's not on this plan, because it's below the,
It's not shown on the plan?
no, and when you do an architectural cut line, you do it at 4 feet. So the door's actually, it's hard to explain without.
It's there, okay.
It's there, but if I drew a crawl space plan, then I would show the door in the crawl
Okay.
space. It's
You're
kind of,
showing on the left elevation the door down to the ground. That's
correct.
the door.
But in the plan, I'm not showing it because I'm showing the first floor. You actually come in to the elevator, half landing, go into a vestibule, go in the elevator and come up a half, and then go up to a full floor.
But what,
Yes.
what you have here, before you discuss anything, because Tom doesn't speak for the board,
You're right.
you have one of the biggest lots in the town. You're building a very big house in excess of 3,200 feet or 3,100 feet. You're blaming the excess on 60 feet from an elevator. I wanted a big porch in my house too, so I cut the house by 2 feet, so I can have an 8-foot porch. A 9-foot porch would give you no variance, it would give you plenty of room for a wheelchair. I think you're asking for a lot.
It's a nice sized house, you know, well-designed,
It is a well-designed house.
taking into consideration as much as we can with regard to trying to, as everyone does, get the best bang for the buck. So we're certainly cognizant of,
But you have that available to you with the size of this lot. You have available to you to get tremendous bang for the buck. This is a,
it is a good sized plan, but we think what we're trying to push
Okay.
toward is, as everyone does, the maximum and then some. And that's unfortunately what you see all the time. You know,
Okay.
almost on every lot, you could build a smaller house. We're fighting for inches or feet, so it's, I hate to say it's the norm, it's what we deal with all the time.
Okay.
But it is, so.
Okay.
Yes, every house, as you know, can be designed without variance. Slightly smaller house here, slightly different left side, right side, the height, but we're bound by such a strict, and even though this is a good sized lot, we're bound by such a strict square rectangle.
there's an absolute need for variances, or there wouldn't be a need for the board, and we
Right.
wouldn't get the salaries that we get.
And that's-
But we have to see a reason, I mean, there has to be a good reason to give a variance, and I just don't see it, so talk to your client, do it.
Take a few minutes, I know this has
All
been
right.
a long night already, we won't take
Okay.
too much of your time, but I think we might have some ideas to come up with here.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, we're back in session.
Well, as usual, in a Solomon-esque like way, you've given us some good ideas, ways that maybe we can split the baby that hopefully are acceptable to the board. What Mr. Baglivo and the applicants have come up with would be, certainly upon the board's consideration, cutting the porch 2 feet completely. So instead of a 12-foot porch, it would be a 10-foot porch. Requesting an amendment to the application, I have advertised for any and all other variances, for a 1 foot 2 inch rear yard setback variance. So now the house is shifting back 1 foot 2 inches, but it will comply with the front yard setback to the porch. So there will be no more front yard setback to the porch. I'm pushing it back into the rear, just a minimal amount, and the front porch becomes smaller. Thank you. The issue still exists as to the coverage, so we do feel like this is the best design. Mr. Baglivo sharpened his pencil over and over again. We have cut some significant space out of the house, and Tom can certainly testify to this, but I'm not sure how we're going to get more space out without making significant changes, even though it's per square, what is it, per floor, 25 feet? That's the elevator shaft. So, for clarification, no front yard setback to the porch variance. Porch would shrink 2 feet, requesting 1 foot 2 inches in the back, and then the coverage would remain as it exists now.
I don't have any, on my plan, I don't have any width or length of, what's the first floor width? Ground floor, you might want to call it. What's the width of the house?
Is it on this plan?
I can get it. I need to borrow that site plan back, I'm sorry. That site right there.
I'm gonna hand it to you.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't need that at all. We're good there.
Yeah.
It's not.
34.6? About 34.6?
Yeah, I think you're on 34.
Yeah, I think it is 34.6 is what you're coming with here.
Can you get
Yep.
a survey with yours?
Yeah, I didn't put that dimension on here, I apologize for that, but.
I strongly recommend you get that percentage down to 30%.
How wide is the house?
34.6.
What is it?
34 and a half.
34 and a half, and how long is the
34 and a half.
first floor? Without the porch?
Why aren't they on the plan?
32. 32, not counting the den and the jut out for the office. There's a den in the rear that juts out about 2 feet, and then there's an office in the front that juts out about 3.
I'm coming out with about 38 something.
Yeah, because you're measuring exactly, you're measuring those.
I'm measuring exactly.
No, yeah, you're measuring the rooms that are,
No, I'm measuring wall to wall, from the front wall,
Yeah.
interior. I'm not,
So,
I add another.
yeah, then like another 5, yeah, like another 3.5, yeah.
So 3 and,
It's not up to us to get rid of the extra feet.
3 and 38. 3, 8, 6, 39, close to 40 feet.
so Mike, from the den to the office wall, how long is that?
40,
From the den to the
40
office.
feet?
yeah.
Mr. Baglivo, we would like measurements on the plans too.
32.6.
Inside, right?
Yeah.
To the inside wall.
Right, what is it?
That's what you say it was, Mike?
From the back of the house where the den is, to all the way to the office wall? Oh, it's 32.6.
Yeah, that's just not to the den wall, that's to the interior den. Yeah, so
From here to here, what is it?
One person talks at a time.
From there to there?
No, it's not. Here's the easy one. What do we care?
The board's the scale, let me just measure over there for you.
This one, see, this is, what's that say?
I know.
Side yard side.
Trying to help, I guess.
Yeah. See, that's just. What is it?
from that line. It's not that line, it's not.
I would just like to make a comment, and while Clem was talking there, it's my opinion the board would be amenable to a 1-foot variance in the backyard, but I really think you're gonna have trouble with the coverage and reconsider it, because it's gonna be one vote.
Something's off that it might work. I'll just come up with-
It's not our job to redo their plans.
I hear you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Squeeze a couple square feet out of there and conform on your coverage, and you're probably good.
60 square feet.
What was that, Tom?
If they're asking for 60, let them ask for 60.
This is being recorded, and I really would request that all comments be made into a microphone.
We're done with comments. Where are we? Where do we stand here?
We've got the amendment on the setback and the porch being cut 2 feet.
So you will need 1.2 feet in the rear and nothing in the front,
1 foot 2 inches. not
Whatever.
1 point. Correct. And nothing in the front.
and nothing in the front.
So we're gonna comply, principal structure, porch,
And you're not gonna comply with the coverage.
not just yet. We're looking to see where we can squeeze out. So
I don't think that's something that needs to be done here.
it doesn't, the only thing we're looking at is, obviously we want to make sure that we're complying as much as we can. So to the extent we don't have to come back, we know how busy the board is. We'd rather take the extra 10 now than,
Okay,
yeah.
Based on, I apologize for the drawing missing information. If I were to take 6 inches out of the longest dimension of the house, I worked it out with Roger, it's pretty close to the 60 feet. If we're over maybe a foot or two, we're willing to take a foot out from the den through the entire house, all the way to the office on both floors.
so you eliminate that variance.
Either
Except for
eliminate
maybe a
it or we'll
foot.
be over by 5 feet.
Got it.
I mean,
Okay,
because
let's
they
go with that.
really have desires for these room sizes. I don't want you to think I'm coming here to build, I mean, if they want to build the biggest mansion in Margate, you got to buy 3 lots. We know how that happens all over Thurlow.
Go ahead. Okay, so we're
So if we do
we're
6
clear.
inches, I'll work out, I'll
Got it.
add all the dimensions and I'll work that out with Roger.
Clear.
So we're gonna comply.
We're going to comply with 6
So,
inches removed from the width of
Rich,
the
does
house.
that
Still
mean
gives
that
us a slight variance,
they're
right?
not getting rid of that? They're gonna say, give or take?
I think
5
what they're
square
saying
feet?
is there's no variance in the front, there's a 1.2 foot variance in the back, and no more than a 5 foot variance on lot coverage.
Agreed.
Yes.
5 square feet. Calculating that out to the percentage, we can certainly do. And
It'll be
obviously,
less than 0.5% based on, right now.
and we're gonna,
5 foot we're talking about.
yes, and we're gonna
Yes.
submit revised, obviously, all the conditions in Mr. McLaren's report will be complied with, so. So, there's no questions, sorry, Mr. Cristaldi's,
I don't know.
amending the application, the board understands what we're doing with the setbacks. We will make a revision to the plan regarding the coverage, but the possibility exists, we may have a 5 foot overage. That
Yes.
overage would not be increased over the number 5 feet, so whatever that percentage comes out to,
0.1%.
0.1%.
Okay.
0.1%.
Any questions from the board? Are you done? I'm sorry, are you done?
I believe we are complete, unless, do you have any other questions? We're done.
Anyone from the public here to comment? Public portion is closed. Without any other comments from the board, Leo, would you read the,
Sure. And I don't think we need to really go into the amendments they're gonna make, other than to frame the 2 variances as a rear yard and a coverage variance, and however they make them work, they make them work. So we need,
Conditions in the report.
and the conditions in the report, and it's a 17-foot rear yard requirement, and they're gonna go to 15 feet 10 inches. That's how I'm.
15.8.
15.8, all right, good. I don't do the
Yes.
decimals.
Yeah.
All right. So we need a motion for C variance relief for a rear yard setback of 15.8 feet where 17 feet is required, and for building coverage of 30.1% where 30% is the permitted maximum, and that percentage is also stated as no more than a 5 square foot increase from what is permitted. And
no, it's 0.8.
isn't,
Dimensions.
1.2 feet, you said?
I think he said
Mr.
2 inches, but I
Wozniacki's
think he means
correct.
.2.
1 foot 2 inches
Oh, it is 1 foot 2 inches.
to the rear, correct.
Okay.
So is it decimal, that's 15.10? Okay.
No, 10 inches.
15 feet 10 inches. A rear yard variance of 15 feet 10 inches where 17 feet is required. The building coverage variance already stated, and all conditions set forth in Mr. McCartney's report of January 24, 2018, and all representations made during the course of the hearing.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I just want to be clear on this. I mean, not trying to split hairs, but the front yard setback is 17.2. You're moving that 1.2 to the back. That's, .2 is not 2 inches.
No, 2 inches.
What's your variance in the front?
Roger, I see what
Your variance request was
Variance in the front.
tenths of a foot.
We're taking 2 feet off the front deck. So
Right.
The variance in the front goes away. We're
So-
moving everything back 1 foot 2 inches.
So you're saying 1.2 feet is equal to 1 foot 2 inches?
No, I'm not saying, I don't know that math. That's over my pay grade right now.
Well, that's
I gotta
what,
figure that one out. I think it's .25.
But the original variance was 17.2 feet instead of 15, or was it 17 feet 2 inches? We have to make it consistent.
17.2 was the original.
The original request was 17.2, so if that 1.2 goes to the back, it's 1.2.
Right.
It's bigger, take it.
He doesn't have to put
Okay.
1.2
I
in the
agree.
back.
I know what you're saying.
Tom Collins?
I think this is a really nice project, a nice design. I think you're going to be very happy with it. It does, without the front yard variance in there, it doesn't change or impact the street at all. I think you're going to keep the integrity of the neighborhood, which is a plus. I don't see any negative impacts on the neighborhood. I think what you're doing is really going to be nice, better than a lot that's just sitting there. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And with the changes that you made, I think I'll vote for it.
Clem Osleski?
Yeah, it's gotta be right, because it's directly across the street from the mayor.
Come on, man.
The compromises made bring everything into a reasonable aspect with the ordinance. I vote in favor.
Yes.
Rich Patterson?
The variances now are so de minimis, I see no impact on the neighborhood. I vote yes.
Mike Cristaldi?
I agree with the other board members. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
Any chance you can keep the snow on a lot like that? That looks pretty cool.
Nice.
I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano?
I'm happy with the changes. I'll vote yes.
Mike Richmond?
Variance is really de minimis, I vote yes.
Application passes 7-0.
Excellent.
I don't know why.
You want us to hang on to the plans for Washington or give them back?
No, do you know? Come on, Randy, get
Harry?
answer.
Washington Avenue plans, should my board members keep them?
Okay, yes, for now, and let me explain what's going on with that. As the board's aware, we had that application, it was denied, we came back with commercial ground level, residential above, it changed the D and just gave us a few Cs. Depending on what the applicant wants to do regarding the overall development, we'll either be back for the Cs or not at all. He may simply comply with the ordinance. I'll know within the next month or so, but I do know also that your February meeting's pretty booked, so to the extent we need to hold on to them, can they hold on to them till March?
You ask them.
No, my question was, do you want us to turn them into you
Right.
rather than us losing them?
I'll lose it fast and shoot.
If they're complete packets.
What's what?
I don't always get complete packets when
Well, we
I,
haven't opened them yet. So.
Okay.
Take them all right here and put them in the
okay,
spots.
then I'll take them.
My people, just this one. Just this one.
Just also, this is important for the record, I told this to Mr. Patterson earlier today. When that hearing went forward,
Would you listen? Quiet.
when that hearing went on back in September, a lot of board members said, take this back to the drawing board. We think you're gonna get interest as commercial ground level, residential above. I disagreed. You were right. The reason we're not back yet with the application is the applicant is getting a fair amount of interest in the property with the commercial ground level. So whatever plan you have for the street seems to be working, at least in the mind of some others who are potentially gonna buy this property. So either it's gonna sell and you will have been correct, or it's gonna be back for an application for commercial ground level, and what you sent us to do will have worked out better for the applicant. So all in all, I think that's a good result, not just for the applicant, but for the board. You got it right. So
Thank you.
what you guys do with the application now, I don't know. Don't throw them away, because we might be back. Go on. And I did say that if we have to come back in, we'll renotice and re-advertise, because it'll be a few months out. Our 200-foot list is gonna get stale anyway.
Roger, would you take it from here with the other business?
Sure.
I believe we have public participation first. Is there any public
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there
participation?
anyone wants to speak from the public regarding any matter? Why are you guys here? All right, Roger.
Okay. First discussion is the flood damage prevention ordinance. What's going on is Longport, Margate, Ventnor are all trying to get on the same page since we share the same island. The idea is Margate or Ventnor already passed an ordinance for the flood damage prevention where they go from BFE +2 to BFE +3. They also allow an extra foot, so you can, it's actually BFE +4, so your flooring system is above the design flood, which is your freeboard requirement. If it's above the design flood, you're not required to have water-resistant materials such as styrofoam, treated lumber, and whatever. The other thought behind this is that the new flood maps are under design, so to speak, right now. The ones that we base all our construction on now did not take into consideration Superstorm Sandy, did not take into consideration Jonas. So the thought is, and they're also floating out there, that you have to factor in global warming or ice melt. That's going to add some footage to that. So the idea for Margate is to be on board with Ventnor and Margate and Longport to go to BFE +3.
Is Longport the same as Ventnor?
Yes.
Okay.
To the bottom of the, here in Margate, I want to go to the bottom of the flooring system. So your design, no. If you're at 8, it would be +3 would be 11. But not right. It's to the bottom of the flooring system. So no matter what, that's your new design flood elevation. So under no circumstance is your first floor be another foot on top of that. But
So where's the heating vents, what are they called, the heating things? Ductwork.
That would be water resistant also.
What's this?
It'd be below the design flood. The idea is to get the flooring system out of the design flood, because anything in the design flood elevation is required to be water resistant.
So then we don't need treated lumber or any of that?
Correct.
What we do if we don't do this?
Correct.
But it's gonna add 1 foot now to the height.
It's going to add 1 foot.
Right.
Well, not to the height from the first floor. It's still 30. It's just the whole
Everything-
building will be higher.
Right.
Into the sky, we're gonna be 1 foot higher.
30 feet will be 30 feet. You're just measuring it from a foot higher.
But didn't you say it was a tremendous hardship to have to use that lumber? And
No, we're not using that number.
if we did have
We're
to,
not using TGIs at this.
if we didn't do this?
If we didn't do that, you go to treated lumber.
Well,
That's my question. So the answer is this just meets that minimum
We're
requirement.
supposed to be using treated lumber now if it's below.
I understand. So this will eliminate that and
This
no-
will
and
eliminate
no
that
more.
requirement. It'll make it easier for the building community because it's going to be a standard instead of, well, we'll give you an extra foot if you don't want to use treated lumber.
Right.
And also with treated lumber, you don't get the same spans with the TGIs and
Okay.
nominal lumber.
Not even close.
So that's,
You builders have any comments on that?
There's somebody that might.
Okay, so what do we do what do we do?
you're basically want to endorse that or not endorse it.
Do we make it
So
a,
Make a recommendation
Do we make a recommendation?
You're gonna, yes.
So make a motion that we recommend.
I actually went to the Longport's planning board meeting last month, and basically we spoke about the same thing. They just want, it's
All
gonna
right,
help
so-
Longport's planning board also.
All right, someone make a motion to recommend to the board that we meet these new requirements. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Passes.
Second item, review proposed ordinance number 02-2018, amending and supplementing the land use ordinance of the city of Margate, chapter 175.
I just thought of.
You're hungry, you want wings with hot sauce.
The only issue that I would
Ranch
see
instead of blue
that's
cheese.
coming up another foot is then you're even more in a situation with the stairs, right? You know what I'm saying?
Stairs in the
Stairs
right of
going out of
way.
your house. So, is there, I was never really clear on this, is there a setback for front stairs?
Not if it's because of the
The
height.
height.
You can go right to the property line.
Not a, say what?
If the stairs, because of the new height requirements, the
Right.
stairs are there's no room, there's no setback. You can go right to the
Right,
property.
That's fine, that's good. That's good, you know, right?
Yes. Okay. Section 29C zoning map so as to extend the waterfront special district, WSG. Scott and I discussed this, and the Margate governing body is in favor of this. When I presented to you the first time, it was just to move the line out halfway out. Scott thought it was better to move it all the way out. And at first, I kind of balked at that, but I think it's a good idea because it's not changing anything on the water unless you have an existing property there now. Again, the purpose of changing the repairing zone at this location is all the existing uses that are in the repairing would now be conforming uses. Right now, they're not conforming uses. Something that's been overlooked at the master plan, but the master plan, by default, is trying to correct that. Yes, everything from Decatur Avenue
Decatur to Coolidge.
to Longport,
Okay,
out.
Years ago, they were conforming, and then somehow it got where.
Yeah, a mistake was
Right.
made at some point.
it
This is
was
really correct.
Switched, and now it's all non-conforming. So all Roger's saying is we want to
It
replicate.
makes existing uses
that we make them
conforming, and
conforming.
if the proposed uses that come before us at some point in time in the future, they won't need a use variance, and they shouldn't have to get a use variance because it's being used in that fashion now. Now, the argument, I had a couple people come in today, they're saying, well, the height is going to be an issue. I said, the height's an issue no matter what. If it's an R zone, WSD zone, it doesn't matter. Height has no bearing on this.
So can we do the same thing
And
on this one?
anything new development over the water where nothing exists now, there'll be nothing new.
So we make a recommendation to go,
Can we do what we just did on the first thing?
Can I ask?
Yes,
These lots, are these from Washington to Coolidge, all these lots?
Decatur.
Yes,
yep,
There's
On
some
the back.
buildings there now.
correct.
because they're,
Could build a building over the water?
No, nothing new will be.
They can't now and they can't then.
Right. There's not gonna be any new building. DEP has jurisdiction over anything that's over the water. They're not gonna allow anything new. They're not gonna build an Acme out at the end of Pier 1.
Existing, they can replace, but
Right,
but there's nothing there, they can't add it.
correct,
But this is just in Washington, Decatur.
right.
So it's
And also, I
moved
will,
off of the
Coolidge to
water.
Decatur.
Coolidge, right.
Coolidge to Decatur.
Longport.
No change.
But the rule is from, you're done. Out.
I also want to point out that the ordinance as it reads today makes a distinction for marina and marina service facilities in that Amherst Avenue section. So we're kind of complying with that.
all right, so we make a recommendation, do I hear a second?
What we ha-
Well, I think,
All in favor?
no, hold on,
Aye.
hold on.
we need to find that it's
No.
consistent with the master plan.
It is
But
consistent.
we've had an ordinance has already been introduced on January 11th by the city commissioners. It's now been referred to us by law, where we have to review it and report back to the commissioners with a finding that it's consistent with the master plan. There's a resolution before us now that makes that determination, and that's what we're having the discussion on. So we would need a motion to adopt the resolution and a second, and then we'd have to vote on it.
And I'll have to do a consistency report to submit to the governing body for final adoption.
All right, I'll
That
make a
motion,
motion,
Ken.
and then you second.
Second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We have to
None.
have a roll call for the vote?
No.
Not if everyone said aye.
Okay. Anyone
Next.
opposed, Rich?
Next, no one was opposed. Next, C.
The last item is the review and make recommendation for proposed ordinance number 03-2018, amending and supplementing the land use ordinance. It's basically for the beach blocks where the zoning line, instead of cutting through properties, and it's going to be coincidental with the bulkhead line as it exists today. So some properties will be bisected by two different zones, where the prevailing zone upland of the bulkhead will default to the prevailing zone that's there. Because the way the
We
ordinance,
discussed this at a prior meeting, too.
Yes, this is
None
definitely
of this is new.
right, but we have to take formal action.
So is that another recommendation, or do you want to talk
So
about it?
ordinance number.
It's definitely consistent with the master plan, yes.
2018, I recommend we send approval.
Yeah.
Was that
Consistent with the
ordinance?
master
Would you word it, please?
It's the same thing we had before. There's an ordinance that's been introduced. This one is, I hate to say, more of a no-brainer. It's clearly consistent with the master plan. But an ordinance has been introduced by the commissioners, been sent over to us. Now we have a resolution sending it back to a resolution which constitutes our report, plus if Roger does anything else, basically stating that it's consistent with the master plan and we recommend that it be
Do I
adopted
hear
as
that
written.
motion?
I make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Who's
Passes.
second?
Craig.
Rich,
Yes.
one of my ordinances in here, why is my construction code ordinance in here? In this, you guys need to talk about this? It's, ordinance 1/2018, it was in the back. Does anybody have any questions about that?
What are you doing?
I'm making a mechanical ordinance, mechanical inspector ordinance.
No, it was just all the
Is
orders.
this extra paper?
Yeah.
Okay. One more thing, can we make Roger our planning board engineer?
Hardly are.
Do we have to appoint you over here? You're an employee of the city. Do we have to make you a? All business
We've
done?
discussed that. It's
Motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. Why are you guys here?